everyone. This is Peter Grandich. I always remind you this is not to be considered investment advice. Always speak to a licensed financial advisor before making any investment decision. Read all my disclosures. Well, this was originally scheduled to speak about Radisson Mining because our next guest, who's a board of director, I believe one of their largest, if not the largest shareholder, paid a visit to it before going off to Europe. What is your assessment of Radisson where it stands today?
Yeah, so Peter, when I make investments, juniors, I've told you this before, I always look for companies that have as good a shot as possible to become a mine. And so, not being a geologist, I'll often outsource the geological due diligence and the mine building risk to others that are way smarter than me in that process. I focus on the valuation, and I also focus on infrastructure. And infrastructure is really important. I've said this to you years before. If you're in an area where you're in the Arctic somewhere and there's no roads, no power, no airport, then if you want to build a mine, you got to put all that in on your dime. And it's very, very expensive. Talking about billions of dollars. So, Matt Manson does a fantastic job telling the story. He's always emphasized to your viewers and whoever shareholders he talks to the value of infrastructure. And you can hear a CEO talk about it. You can see it on a map. But when you actually, jump on a plane and land at the airport, I saw firsthand how phenomenal the infrastructure is here, Peter. Same thing I felt about Arizona Metals when I went there. And actually, it's a good governor. I don't want to spend 5 days visiting a mine site. So if I can get in and out from my home, and you know how important my family is to me, Peter, that tells you the infrastructure is very, very good. And that's good for me, but it's also good for the mining company because that means the infrastructure is there. If it's easy to get to, it's going to be much lower cost to build the mine. So I landed at Rouyn-Noranda Airport in Quebec, got picked up by Hubert, our CFO at Radisson, and it's a 30-minute drive from the airport to the Radisson site. But along the way, Peter, in total of about 35 minutes, we stopped at Westwood Doyen, which is IM Gold's mine. That was about 15 minutes from the airport. We were able to drive in, took some pictures of the mill, saw the site, saw part of the open pit they were mining there, got back in the car. 5 minutes later, right off the highway, we're at Agnico's LaRonde mine, got off the highway, took some pictures, saw their mine, saw their operations, back in the car, and less than 10 minutes later, we're at Radisson's site. So from the airport to the Radisson mine site, in 35 minutes, I was able to go to 3 mining operations on a fully paved road with power and world-class highways. And both of those mines were within 15-minute drive of Radisson's site. So that when Matt talks about putting our ore in someone else's mill and the infrastructure in place, you really don't have to do anything. You got to put on a truck and you'll be 50 minutes away from cash flow. So that really stood out to me quite strongly, Peter, and dramatically emphasized the strategic value of Radisson's location, which is very important in mining business. Then I had a fantastic presentation by Dave, our VP of Exploration. Matt's been really excited. I've been very excited about the deep drilling. So we got leapfrogged out. We went through all the 3-dimensional drawings. To simplify the message for the viewers here, Peter, Radisson's drilling deep. We have about 1 million ounces currently at about 10 grams. 80% of that, or 90%, it's about 650 meters. All the holes I saw drilling, and there's pictures of me on LinkedIn, Peter, you can see with me looking at core. All that core that was coming out of the drilling while I was there is anywhere from between 1,300 meters deep and 1,600 meters deep. So they're drilling 2 to 3 times deeper than where the resource is currently, and having fantastic success. And seeing the geology on site, seeing the core, these guys have an excellent geological model. The chutes are very, very continuous for about 2,000 meters continuously, Peter. They're putting holes in 1,500 meters, 2,000 meters below surface, and they're hitting it hole after hole after hole because they have the control. They know where it is. And this drilling is extremely exciting. And that's why the company raised a bunch more money, Peter. They didn't need any more money. We were fully funded for 22,000 meters. But the drilling is giving us such good results. The company wants to dramatically accelerate that. And as soon as the financing closes, you'll get a more comprehensive plan from management. But I can say directionally, Peter, think of a double or triple of what we're doing currently in terms of meterage, which has a massive impact on the deposit. There's currently 3 rigs drilling. They're all drilling deep. One's drilling under the old O'Brien mine, which is where we had all the love recently. One is now drilling under the old O'Brien mine just to the west. So another part of the old mining operation going very, very deep there. And another one is going deep under Trend 2. So expect a lot of news flow from those 3 areas of drilling. And then they're all starting to wedge now underneath those holes. So you're going to see a lot of wedges, which will allow for very rapid resource growth. And then with the new financing, Peter, you could potentially anticipate going to 4 rigs and having 3 to 4 rigs running continuously for the rest of the year with a very large program of drilling. So the resource is going to expand very, very quickly there in the short to medium term with the drilling that we're doing. The company has $12 million in the recent fund, probably about $20 million, pro forma for the financing. So the company's very well financed. Drilling in Rouyn-Noranda will cost us $200 or so a meter Canadian, 250 if we do directional drilling. So a lot of drilling to come. The company's extremely well financed. We've completed our PEA, so we talked about that on the site visit. The metallurgy has been de-risked. We know that the ore is very suitable for certain mills in the mining camp, so the strategic value of the deposit has never been better. And to top it all off, I think gold hit $4,500 Canadian while I was in London. That's $44,500 Canadian per ounce while I was on the road. So that's obviously dramatically increasing the value of those ounces for producers in the future at some point in time. So it was an A-plus site visit, very professional team. Matt runs a very tight ship, very well organized. Strategy is very, very clear. And one other tidbit I would say, Peter, that we're looking at, we've talked about in recent presentations, this is a very coarse gold deposit. So what that means is a lot of gold nuggets. You see a lot of visible gold when we drill our holes and we get excited about that. But when you do the assays, you're only taking a small portion of the core when you do an assay. And what that means, if you sample the wrong part of the core, sometimes you might miss large volumes of free gold in the deposit. So the company is currently exploring a re-assay program using potentially photon assays. And what that means, Peter, is you're going to sample the whole core and get a much better representation sample of the drill core that you have, and likely potentially have higher grades coming into your resource. So we're probably missing a lot of gold in the assays that we're doing. So the company's looking at a test of systematically testing larger samples, and that potentially could, see what the results of, could increase the grade of the deposit even further without any additional drilling, which for me as a finance guy, I found that really intriguing. So A-plus site visit. Our financing, we had a $6 million lead order from one investor. So clearly larger investors are starting to take note of Radisson. And I'm very excited for the months ahead here as we drill deeper and start to further de-risk this project.